So in our last video, we started the basic setup for a Webpack, Typescript and React file, but we could add a few more things. First of all, we could remove the bundle.js file in our index.html file, just in case we change the file name or want to put it in a different position. We could add some styles. We could have multiple components, which a typical React project has. So let's go ahead and implement a few of these things. First, let's remove our bundle.js script tag, and we'll try and do it through Webpack, which will also give us the ability to have hot reloading, whereby basically if you change a file in the style or the JS, it'll automatically reload the browser, so you won't have to do it manually. To do this first, we need to get a plugin called HTML Webpack plugin, and we'll install that as an npm. So let's go into our terminal and do npm install HTML Webpack plugin. Oh, sorry, let's do it as a dev dependency, not as a normal dependency. And then once that's done, let's go into our Webpack config file, and we'll load it in first as a constant. So we'll call that HTML. Camel case version of the plugin, and let's require it. Okay, and now let's make use of this plugins array by calling the new HTML plugin over here, and then we'll have that reference our HTML file in a template. Cool, and that should be it. So at the moment, if I were to start the server, npm start, it should run the Webpack dev server. And if I navigate to localhost 8080, once this is finished, in the browser, it should work as normal. But also, if I were to change this to say hello2 and save it, it will automatically refresh the page without me doing anything. Cool. All right, now let's enable something called source maps. So at the moment, there isn't that much JS code for us to debug, but if we were to have a lot and wanted to debug the file, we'll do that by inspecting our element and go into the sources section. And currently, we just see a bundle without any index.tsx, so we wouldn't be able to detect any JavaScript code. So let's change that so we can make it easy to debug. We'll do that by getting another loader called source map loader, sorry. So let's install that as another dev dependency. I'm pressing Control-C to stop the server, and I'll clear it to get back to the top. So do npm install source map loader as a dev dependency. And once again, we'll install that. We'll apply it through our Webpack config file. Let's add another rule below this one, and we'll enforce it before anything else is done to this file type. So this file type will be JS. So basically, it won't check the TS file, but the JS file. So it will mainly bundle stuff. But that's fine for this case. Okay, and let's add it as a loader. Source map loader. And we also need to add another dev tool, another line into a pack called dev tool. And we'll tell it to do source map. Okay, so this should work. Let's restart the server again. Okay, and I've made an error. Let's have a look at what we've done. Spelling mistake. And force Right, let's try that again. Cool. So now if we go to our browser, it should automatically refresh. And now we can see we have our index.tsx bundle here and this file, which I have no idea what it does, but that's absolutely fine. So any other file we add, it'll show up here, and we can add debugger codes, we can add breakpoints and debug as a normal developer would. So let's go ahead and add another file. Let's go into our... Actually, you know what? Let's do it through Atom. Even though I don't like doing it, I think it's probably slightly quicker doing it this way. So let's add a new folder called components. And let's add a file called app.tsx. Awesome. So we'll add some typical React boilerplate. And then we'll have a class export of this. Extend. Oops. For those who aren't familiar with React, this is going to look like a lot of random code to you, but bear with me. All right. Okay. So initially, what this is doing is similar to what. Let me format this. I've made a mistake somewhere. I think that's fine. So initially, what this is doing exactly the same thing as the index.tsx file is doing, rendering hello. But what it's doing is getting. If we create a React class, we have access to all its lifecycle hooks. Renders one of them. But I'm making a class purely to show you how to have props and show you how to use Typescript in a React class. So let's add a prop. So we'll give it a name. And we will call the name inside the index.tsx file. But that's after we've imported the app. From our components. Cool. Now I've written it in this way purely because the app isn't the default export. So if we did export this as default, then we can get rid of these curly braces. But it's convention to have it this way just in case you have any other classes we want to export. You'll also notice here that there's an any and any here. If you're not familiar with TypeScript, this is basically how you reference the type. So this first any is meant to represent any props we have, and the second any is meant to represent the state. Because we have props, it makes sense to tell TypeScript what type the props are. And to do that, we create an interface. Interface will typically start with capital I. So we'll call it iProps. And we only have a name in our props, which is going to be a string. So we'll have name, and we'll tell TypeScript that it's going to be a string. And we can get rid of this and replace it with iProps. So let's get rid of this any by iProps. We've got nothing in terms of state. There's no state here. So it makes sense just to have an empty object, and that should work fine. I mean, we could have an iState, but there's no point in having an interface with iState and an empty object. So now you'll notice that in our index.txt file, when we referenced this, we didn't say .tsx. And we need to tell Webpack that we're going to have files without the extensions. In order to do that, let's go back to our Webpack config file. And we'll create another part called resolve. And what resolve does is it tells Webpack that anything that has the certain extensions, we'll tell it that these are the extensions to try, and one of these will work. So we want it to check for JS extensions, TS extensions, and TSX extensions. Cool. So basically what this line does is Webpack will go into index.tsx and see that this doesn't have an extension. We'll try JS. If JS doesn't work, we'll try TS, and then we'll try TSX, and then we'll find it here and we'll import it. So now that we've imported the app, let's call it in our render method. And with React, you can self-close with a slash in the element. Let's give it a props name. Awesome. So what this will do is basically pass the name into here, and it'll say hello with the name that comes after it. Now let's see if this will actually work. Let's go into our terminal, and it's been doing some linting on the fly, and it can't find component/app. And let's see if I've made a spelling mistake. I won't be surprised if I have. Components. No, it looks correct. Okay, turns out it was the way I spelt extensions in the Webpack file, so I've gone and changed that, restarted the server, and this all works now. So you can see you've got our index, you've got our app, and we can make changes. We can make breakpoints and whatnot to debug. Final thing to do is let's add some styles to this. So let's create a folder in our source directory called styles. And let's create a file called style.scss. For those who don't know about SCSS, it's a way to write styles that process back into CSS. I won't talk about that too much now. I may do in a future video, but for now let's write some code. So I'm going to create a variable called background gray, which will be a typical kind of grey color. And then let's add some style to the body. Now what I'm going to do here is, again, copy and paste what I've got in my previous article, because once again it's easier to copy and paste than to write everything line by line. So let's find this style, which is over here, and copy and paste it. So all this does is add a serif file, a sans serif file, style to our file, give it a font size of 80 and a line height of 1.3 rem, and get this background color. All right, so as you'll notice, if I save that and go to our Webpack file, we'll notice Webpack currently doesn't read SCSS, currently doesn't read any CSS, so we need to tell it to do all the stuff. Let's install a plugin, or a few plugins actually, with npm. Let's clear that so it goes to the top. npm install. First, we'll install our extract text Webpack plugin, which will create our style file. We'll create our CSS loader to load the CSS. We'll create our Sass loader to load our SCSS, and we'll install node Sass to pass our Sass into CSS. That'll take a while to install, so you can go and grab coffee or something and come back when it's all done. Alright, now it's all finished. Let's go back to our Webpack config file and tell it what to do. We'll create another rule, and this time we'll tell it to test for SCSS files. So we'll do our typical regex, and then we will load in. Sorry, first we'll use the extract text plugin to extract. I'll write the code first and I'll explain what's going on afterwards. Sorry. We will use an array Okay, so what this is doing is, the way Webpack works is it works from right to left. So it will look for an SCSS file first, then it will use Sass loader to pass the Sass into CSS. It will use the CSS loader to minimize the CSS, so then we'll have a chunk of CSS minimized somewhere. And then the extract text plugin will, by default, Webpack will inline our CSS, but we want to not do that by using this plugin to make a CSS file, which we're going to tell it to make now. So go into our plugins and create a new, use extract text plugins, create a new file called style.css. So now what that's going to do is grab all our CSS and put it into a file called style.css. Forgot to put that there, that's what's giving me the error. And final thing to do is we'll go into our index.tsx and actually import our SCSS. So that's the way Webpack works. As you can see in this file, everything comes from index.tsx. So we need to put everything into index.tsx. Even if we have images, they'll need to go into the JavaScript somehow so that Webpack can read it. So let's import our styles and style.scss. Cool. So if we go back to our terminal, run the server, hopefully we'll get no errors. And I've made a mistake somewhere. One thing I forgot to do is call the extract text plugin. So I'll do that here. Okay, so now let's start the server again. And now let's go into the browser. Everything works fine with the style, which you can see here. So now we've got the main setup files out of the way. Let's go ahead and start creating our to-do list. If you've enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.